Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Post-fight review for Franklin Ignatius vs Steve Robinson. This was a fight on a DAZN card in Newcastle in the United Kingdom. It was the co-main event with Josh Kelly headlining the card. And I guess somewhat surprisingly, it was the co-main, given there wasn't really much on the line here. But this fight had promised, the potential to be a bit of a barn burner, that with Steve Robinson having been in some fun fights recently, maybe this one would also sort of take off and deliver some action. But Franklin Ignatius, who'd been in some tough, hard fights with Hosea Stewart and managed to sort of nullify him, he was able to sort of take the heat out of this fight and ultimately got a really wide decision on the cards. You had Steve Robinson unable through the fight to really land a clean punch. Franklin Ignatius, the shorter fighter, was able to land more clean shots regularly through the fight and had Steve Robinson just missing most of the time. So what could have been a potential for a really fun fight ultimately ended up being a little bit of a war of attrition. A lot of holding, quite scrappy, with Franklin Ignatius picking up rounds on the back of the odd right hand and left hook, which would either find its way to the body or head. He was just landing more and there was better, cleaner work overall. So there was no real controversy for me about the decision. I thought it was pretty clear Ignatius took this one, and obviously the referee agreed. Maybe some of the home fans thought Robinson was hard done by, but he had a sort of decent opening round and he sort of gave it everything in the final round and had a bit of success, but still ended up on the wrong end of a big left hook, which was the best punch of that final round. Everything in between, Robinson was just found lacking. The footwork wasn't good, the head movement, but ultimately as well, when he tried to make adjustments, like when he tried to have some close quarters action, he was just coming off second best. He wasn't able to land any effective work. Ignatius just had a penchant for being able to see what was coming and get out of the way, especially because the right hand in particular from Robinson was badly telegraphed, and that was the weapon that Robinson wanted to land and detonate to try to make something happen. He just couldn't, but he didn't disguise it. He didn't really work the jab. He didn't use his length. He was unable to make the most of the natural advantages that he had coming into this fight. And Franklin Ignatius, obviously a lot shorter than Robinson and also quite heavily muscled, was effectively using his shots relatively economically and not sort of blowing himself out. So he was able to just work enough to pick up rounds, steal rounds on the back of some more eye-catching work. So yeah, not a good night for Steve Robinson, and you sort of go, well, where to for him? And we'll talk about that in a second. But I guess first, Franklin Ignatius. So this is the sort of third fight in a row that he's sort of been able to nullify his opponent in that way. But I think as he steps up the levels against better opponents who can box, who can move, who can actually throw the jab and throw it with a bit of authority to help keep him off and deter him, I think his lack of volume is going to catch up with him. It's just in this one, Steve Robinson wasn't throwing much either. So it was mostly low volume rounds with Ignatius getting the better of it. So I think the question is, where does he go next? And maybe a logical option could be for a shot at the English title. So you've got Solomon Dacres, the holder of that belt. He needs opponents. Solomon Dacres versus Franklin Ignatius, I think, is a decent defense for Dacres, who I think would box the ears off Ignatius, who just doesn't work hard enough. I don't think he's got enough volume to sort of counteract what Dacres can do with his boxing and moving style. Sure, Dacres doesn't hit hard, but he will, as the taller fighter, utilize those advantages that he has. But I do think that maybe around this level is where Franklin Ignatius, against the likes of a Robinson, that maybe could be his level. Maybe you'd see him against a Johnny Fisher potentially, or a Harry Armstrong, someone of that ilk. There are some other guys floating around that I think he could have a decent fight with. In terms of Robinson, I think it's clear his level has been reached. He probably is area title level, maybe there and somewhere, between there and English title level. He got that win against Nick Campbell that was late on, where he managed to catch Campbell and sort of take him out. But I think if you're just relying on a big right hand and you're not utilizing anything else, you're not jabbing, you're not looking for pretty much anything else, you don't have good head movement or footwork, it's, you're making it hard for yourself. So this could actually potentially be Robinson, maybe a potential opponent for the likes of a Johnny Fisher. Fisher is soon to be having a crack at the Southern Area title versus Harry Armstrong, but maybe after that there could be scope for a fight between Fisher and Robinson, or maybe Fisher and Armstrong. There is some different mixes and matches that you could make. Maybe Jeamie Tshikeva versus Steve Robinson. I mean, Tshikeva needs some more rounds, and I think with Robinson and his durability, he can go rounds. I mean, there is that potential step to journeyman status that kind of looks inevitable. I know some people won't like to hear that, but based on what we're seeing, he's a big, tough guy, and that's about it. So you have Franklin Ignatius moving on. If it's not a Solomon Dacres next, where does he go? Maybe him versus a Jeamie Tshikeva. I think that would be a decent fight, and I think Tshikeva, with his skills, would fancy being able to outpoint and outwork Franklin Ignatius. But I think that would be a good test for both at this point. And you got to say, Ignatius, relatively speaking, he kind of has been in tough so far with his matchmaking. So this is another fight that adds a little bit more experience, but I think he is going to have to work a little bit harder the higher that he goes up the levels. Anyway, what do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.